Thank you, Daniela. Time now for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Gives me great pleasure to introduce longtime sports journalist of the Detroit News, still contributing to the news. It's Lynn Henning. Lynn, thanks for joining us on the headliner. Really appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Art, and nice to catch up with you after a long time.
Yeah, it actually has been too long. I mean, we used to see each other quite often back in the day, and with the Major League Baseball draft, I know you've been following that coming up on June 10th. The Tigers have the number one overall pick, but I want to ask you a question, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you would know the answer. It seemed to me at one time the baseball draft was endless. Guys were being drafted in like the 147th round. I mean, like if a team didn't decided after 18, 20, 30, 90 picks they were done, they could stop, but then other teams could go until they were done drafting players. Now, because of COVID-19, the rules are changed where the Tigers, they have 6 picks in 5 rounds. I mean, I know that this is extenuating circumstances, but my gosh, this is a whole different ball game. No pun intended. That's going to happen here on June 10th and 11th.
It is. They used to go 50 rounds, and then they cut it down to 40, and they were still drafting kids like Mario Mpemba's son in the 40th round just because they didn't really have any other prospects to go with at that stage. And so it did get to be almost a little bit frivolous. But this year they've sort of overcorrected, Art, because of coronavirus. Now to have this thing down to 5 rounds, and for a rebuilding team, I think that really comes as a bit of a blindside hit, because generally, Art, what you can do is get pretty good players even up until about the 10th round or so. And so for a team that's trying to restock its farm system, 5 rounds and 6 picks, which is what they have in those 5 rounds, a total of six, um, that'll get them some chips, and one very, very good one likely to go first overall. But it's not exactly the kind of replenishment that they were expecting from this year's draft.
I don't know how this is going to work, but I would imagine that after they get their 6 picks in round five, their job is not even done, because I would imagine guys that they might have thought would be available in round 6 through 10 or so, they're going to have to be competing with all Major League Baseball teams for guys that they thought they had a possibility would be slotted maybe to go towards them.
True, and what you'll find out too is unless these guys are college seniors, most of them will go back to either college or begin their freshman year either at a college or at junior college, which enables them next year, if they go to JC, to be available for the 2021 draft. That's where this thing is going to get just crazy and unpredictable. All of the people you didn't have to choose from this year will be jammed into that 2021 draft. And who knows if COVID-19 isn't any more under control a year from now, Art, than it is at this stage. I don't know what's going to happen, but they really do need all 40 rounds next year, because there's going to be talent loaded through 20 of those rounds at least. And that's when this team will get probably some kind of advantage, depending if they're still selecting first overall or not. Now, that's a big, big, big edge, as we know. And that is their edge even through the 5 rounds this year, Art, is having that first slot right from the chute, right from the get-go. And that should get them some pretty good talent, even in this truncated draft.
Where the Tigers are at right now, and they have a wealth of pitching in their system. We all know about the young arms that they have. It would seem that Spencer Torkelson has to be almost now the definitive number one pick. He's almost like Alexi Lafreniere is going to be in the
Yeah,
NHL draft.
yeah,
Everyone's just looking at him thinking this guy is number one.
he is. And I think this is pretty much a done deal already. Scott Boras, of course, is his agent. And you always take a deep breath there, because that's never going to be simply an open and shut case. But Scott Boras and the Tigers have a good relationship. The family is, I know, sold on this 1-1 overall selection. The idea that they could go 1-1 is prestige, and it amounts to an incredible testament and tribute to a talented young player that he would be selected first overall. So, Art, there is no doubt in my mind this will be the pick, and this will be the guy that they'll sign. And his hit tool and his power, you're right, are extraordinary. Um, you don't get a lot of hitters like this. Even at the top of the draft, most years, you don't have one who is quite this good. And so he is a legitimate potential franchise talent. And in that respect, I think they're fortunate to be drafting where they're drafting.
When you look at it, first basemen traditionally do not go number one overall, the 1-1,
Right.
as you like to say. Yet everything I read about him is that he is extremely athletic. He's just not a power hitter. He's just not a first baseman. You think first base, you think no pun intended, but a lumbering ox or somebody who can't move
Right.
that well
Right.
and can just sort of field his position as long as he doesn't have to move and catch the ball. He actually is a versatile fielder and can play different positions, and he's a little bit more of a, maybe not so much a spray hitter, but he can hit, just not hit home runs.
You absolutely have it nailed. And Arizona State, Tracy Smith, their head coach out there, has used him actually as a fill in role, even in center field. That's how athletic he is.
Well, again, he's a little older, and everything I've read about him is that out of everybody, and there's some pretty good talent in this draft, let's be honest, but that he could be
Yeah.
the most major league ready. That Riley Green was a high school kid. This year, because of COVID-19, high school kids, because they didn't play at all, they might be a little bit down in the pecking order. A guy like Torkelson, not only because of his power numbers, but because he was able to play a little bit, had I don't know, like 6 home runs, 11 runs batted in before the season closed down, 15 intentional walks, which is pretty darn impressive in its own right. You look at all of that. I mean, here's a guy that could be slated for Comerica Park rather quickly.
He's got a terrific batting eye, too. And that's part of those walks. I watched him play at Phoenix this February for Arizona State against, it was Vanderbilt and a couple other teams, Long Beach State, maybe whatever it was. And Art, he really, really knows the strike zone. He's a little like Alex Avila in that regard. I mean, he knows a ball from a strike. One more reason why he's considered to be an exceptional hitter. But when you talk about his age, interestingly, that's really also in his favor. Even though he's 3 years out of high school, he's still only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until August. It's one more advantage that he carries. They can see at how he has matured and flourished, even when he's essentially been one of the younger guys on the field. And that, again, simply redounds to the fact that the Tigers are going to get a pretty amazing talent here, I think.
Well, that's great. Now I want to go on to a couple of more players. I mean, stranger things have happened, I guess. As far as the number one pick, I don't think the Tigers. I mean, we've already have him signed, sealed, and delivered, and maybe even potentially playing for the Red Wings at one point in his career as well as the Tigers. But with all that said, Austin Martin is considered the best pure
Mm-hmm.
hitter of all, and I keep hearing if he could play shortstop, hands down, if they knew he could play it at the major league level, they think he can play all over the field. He's that versatile that he would be the definitive number one pick because shortstop is obviously a premier position. Tigers could use a
Sure.
shortstop. So what about Austin Martin? How stunned would you be, Lynn? Even though, as I said, we haven't Torkelson signed, sealed, and delivered. If the Tigers get up there and say, "Well, we're going to take Austin Martin."
Uh, Whoever gets Austin Martin is going to be getting a terrific hitter, no doubt about it. He doesn't have Torkelson's power, though, Art. And Torkelson's hit tool is not much beyond or behind Martin's, if it is much at all. And so for that reason, I think it becomes an easy pick. Now, I don't know that Austin Martin would have been the Tigers' choice had Torkelson not been available. I think it more likely would be Asa Lacy, the left-hander out of Texas A&M.
Yeah.
There is another franchise-level talent. I talk about Asa Lacy, Art, comparing him, and you and I will remember this very, very well, to Frank Tanana before he injured his arm.
Oh, wow.
Back when he was throwing lightning and spotting that lightning. Led the American League in strikeouts when he was 20 years old as a rookie. that was Frank Tanana then, a left-hander who just threw heat and had all the other stuff along with it. Lacy's about that same kind of pitcher. And so you can see that whoever gets him is getting Cy Young caliber talent for a long, long time.
Well, I was going to ask you about Asa Lacy and see if the Tigers could go that way. But when you bring up Frank Tanana, just as a reference point, I think when he broke into the major leagues, I was a freshman in college, and I knew kids from Catholic Central who went to school with him, and he was the talk of baseball back then. They had
Yeah,
Nolan Ryan, I believe, too. But I mean, he really came
yeah.
in and set the league on fire. I mean, he was the
Oh,
talk of. He was incredible. I mean, if you're taking Asa Lacy and a young Frank Tanana and putting them in the same sentence, you know what? I'm still not going to change. I still want Torkelson, if it were me. But still, I mean, Asa Lacy. Any other players that maybe stand out to you? Even though it really sounds like it's Lacy, Torkelson, maybe an outside shot at Martin, that the Tigers could go. I hate this expression, Lynn, and I hate to put you on the spot like this, off the board and pick somebody out of nowhere.
no. This is, Art, I've had friends ask me, how certain are you that they'll take Torkelson? I've said 110%. And I think I might boost it to 120 right now because this thing is going to happen. They know he's really the bat they need. He is going to sign for money that will be about in the neighborhood of what guys typically get at first overall. He'll be within a couple 100,000 probably of the ultimate ceiling, which I think is 8.4 million. So this is going to be a complete deal here very, very, very shortly. And I think on the basis of skills and needs, I think it's the guy they are absolutely certain to take. I think they've been certain about this for a few months now, and it simply had to be negotiated. And I think the negotiations have progressed to a point of completion.
I heard that this draft is really rich in pitching talent and that the
Mm-hmm.
Tigers' next pick is at 38, but
Mm-hmm.
they might be compelled, as much as they need some positional players to fill out their farm system, which is on the rise rather nicely, that there might be a quality pitcher available at 38 that in years past would have gone in the top 20. It might be too good to pass up. Do you think they could go pitching with that second overall pick?
They definitely could because, as you say, this is probably the deepest draft we've seen in the last 10 years. And there are going to be some good players available at 38. Now, I think the question is, Art, if the pitchers go early, then they're going to be looking at either taking a shortstop, and presumably it could be a Leaky Smith or Freddie Zamora. He's out of the University of Miami. Williams, rather, is out. Lika Williams is out of ASU. They could go that route, or they could go for a bat like Daniel Cabrera, an outfielder. And Cabrera is a college bat who really makes a lot of sense for them. They could go that way. They could go with Zach Deloche out of Texas A&M. There are a bunch of players like that who also would fit in at 38, or they might find that a pitcher like Auburn, they have a Tanner Burns, a right-hander who's really good. And if he were around, he would conceivably be the guy. I think the important thing, Art, is they're going to have a really good player at 38. And it's just a question of who they select.
Lynn, thanks for joining us on the Headliner. Big news is, Lynn thinks that Emerson Hancock is a shoo-in as number one for the Tigers. So we'll have to watch.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, really. Lynn's hearing it for the first time, too.
Enjoyed the
Lynn,
conversation, Art.
Yeah, it's always fun, Lynn. It's always great. We got to catch up sooner. We'll have you on soon. Obviously, Spencer Torkelson, Lynn thinks, I hope, signed, sealed, and delivered to the Tigers when on June 10th when the first pick is announced. Thanks again, Lynn. Really appreciate it. Have a great time and stay safe and be healthy, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Art. Had fun. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I did too. There you have it. That is the Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Well, I guess mark it, Daniela. Spencer Torkelson, soon to be a Detroit Tiger.